Alright. De-Googling on the phone has proven to be really damn difficult, which is shocking given how, at least on the desktop, it was a totally different experience, right? And it's also a bit ironic, too, because, well, it's the Android open source project. Shouldn't it be a bastion of purity and hopes and dreams? And no spyware? Yeah, absolutely not. I have to use Google services whether I like it or not, and that sucks. Now, the thing with the experience is that it's not hard to use a custom ROM. That's not the hard part, and it's the hard part isn't that stuff doesn't work either, because stuff works. Custom ROMs just work generally. At least the one I use just works. It's more so that uh, so much of the stuff I use depends on Google's proprietary mobile services, which just sucks. Like, while switching to alternative software on the desktop, I didn't have to deal with any of this shit. The closest thing is like what, running games through Proton, and even then, not I wouldn't call that the same level of invasive. I mean, not like running not like running Google Play in a sandbox is as invasive as it would be on a regular Android ROM, where Google Play has supreme access and control to everything on your device. No, at least on Graphene, I could go ahead and actually control it. I can disable its permissions if I wanted to. I can't do that because it needs a lot of stuff to be usable, but I can if I wanted to. I could even uninstall it completely if I wanted to, except that's a problem. If I uninstalled Google Play services, I would effectively, I mean, I'm not gonna go as far as to call it a dead weight, or a paperweight, I mean, but my phone would be about half as useful. Because unfortunately, I do need stuff like, say, WhatsApp, or other stuff, and all that stuff depends on GMS. And it's unfortunate, too, because, like, Android has an entire ecosystem of open source software, right? But it's not used that much. Like, it doesn't feel up to parity with the proprietary stuff. Sometimes it's by a little bit, other times by a bit more, though. Um, to be fair, though, a lot of the open source Android stuff is good. Case in point, the ROM, ironically, the custom ROM has been by far one of the nicest things. Like, Graphene OS, like, good lord, I would glaze this thing all day, because it is quite literally the most secure mobile OS on the planet, and yet it feels just like any other Android. There are a couple hiccups. I can only really think of 3 that are noteworthy, but otherwise it is a really good piece of software. Shame it's only exclusive to Google Pixels, which is ironic. Google Pixels being the most de-Googleable phones on Earth, but whatever. But Graphene is easily the highlight of this. Quite literally, its only flaws are 1, no RCS. 2, its gallery app is shit. 3, its default keyboard is shit. And that's it. I can mitigate the keyboard, I can mitigate the gallery. Only RCS is kind of annoying, but even then I don't send text messages on the regular. Pretty much everyone uses WhatsApp, so whatever. But Graphene is definitely the highlight. The lowlight is everything else. Okay, that's pretty harsh, but okay. F-Droid. F-Droid is the open source alternative to Google Play, right? That's like that's like an app store that has only open source software, right? There's a couple problems with it, though. nothing deal breaking per se, but more so just extra BS that it's inconvenient to deal with. So number one, the default F-Droid repo just isn't for everyone. In fact, it's actually pretty niche, all things considered. What I mean by this is the default F-Droid repository is very, very, very strict in regards to not. It's not just that it only allows open source software. That's fine. That's to be expected, and that's a good thing. But it is a really, really, really strict on what, like, it has to be 100% clean. Here's an example of egregious one off the top of my head. There's this app called Zip Extract, right? It's for extracting, well, it's literally just for extracting zipped files, right? The F-Droid version is basically castrate. It's basically just a fraction of what its full functionality is. It only supports zips and tarballs, I believe. It supports like 2 out of a bunch of different formats, because the full fat version, which I don't know if it's on the Play Store, but it's on an alternative F-Droid repository that I'll mention in a minute. It supports a lot more stuff. Like the F-Droid version, it supports zip, tarballs, and that's it. It doesn't support, for example, the RAR format from WinRAR, because, oh well, RAR is a proprietary format, therefore that's evil. That's not kosher. We're getting rid of it. And it's like, bro, the app alone is open source. You don't have to. It's good intentioned, but pour your resources somewhere else, please. And so, yeah. But wait, there is a way to deal with that. There's a alternative to the regular F-Droid repository. Yeah, we're getting already starting off with the BS. So note how I said repository. So F-Droid, one of the good things about it is that it's decentralized. The default F-Droid.org repository, sure, it holds a lot of 100% squeaky clean open source software, but if you don't mind committing the cardinal sin of using an open source program that may or may not depend on one proprietary library or something like that, then there's alternative repositories like EasyAndroid, which is actually pretty good, and honestly, it's probably what F-Droid should be by default. I get the intent behind F-Droid, I really do, and I hope that ideally proprietary software shouldn't exist, but it does, unfortunately, and in a lot of cases we kind of need it we kind of have to deal with it for full functionality. Like, what's the point of installing an extract app that only supports 2 formats out of like 70? But EasyAndroid is pretty good, all things considered. It's a very nice repository, not much else to say. It's just a shame that it's not literally the default, and that the default has, in a lot of cases, reduced functionality. Actually, another problem with F-Droid, a bigger one, a lot of the time, the apps are outdated. Now, this is to be expected when, you're talking about a third-party service that hosts your software, right? Like, if you're not literally just giving out a file for people to download, then yeah, you're gonna have to wait for the moderators, the janitors, right, to make sure that the software's fine and to approve it. But in F-Droid, it is especially bad, because sometimes it could take a long time, and that's because F-Droid manually signs every single package, which that introduces a lot of overhead. So F-Droid tends to have outdated packages. EasyAndroid, I think, is a little bit better, though, because it just automatically either builds packages or grabs... I think it just grabs them off of GitHub whenever they release. But F-Droid, good idea, good software, really, but the default repository really could do better. And the fact that honestly, it also could just do with more software, because for some reason I found that a lot of apps just tend to have their own repository for some reason. Like Brave's F-Droid release, for example, it just has its own repository, which, I mean, sure. I mean, I don't know why not consolidate into something like Izzy, but whatever. But fine, F-Droid. All in all, good enough-ish, but it's just not as smooth as the Google Play Store. It's like, again, if you limited yourself to default F-Droid, which is exactly what you get if you just download the F-Droid App Store, you're just gonna get a GIMP repository. And then you'd have to go and manually enable another one. And that's a lot to ask already. Because a lot of people struggle at updating Google Chrome, let alone all this stuff. So, another open source replacement to Google's proprietary services, push notifications. There's an open alternative to Google's Fire Cloud messaging, right? That being the push notification system. Notice how you don't have to have an app open in the background. It'll just receive a notification automatically. Yeah, this stuff runs quietly in the background. Google, as evil as they are, they have made Android a very nice UX with stuff like this. Does Unified Push hold up? Well, literally speaking, it does work. Okay, you could install a Unified Push distributor, they call it, right? And it works. It does exactly what it advertises itself as. It's an open source, decentralized push notification service. Does exactly what it says on the tin. Problem. Maybe like 2 apps support it. Or, actually, I don't even have to make a joke for this. There are very few applications that support it. Just going off here, there's like... How is that? Half of these are Matrix clients, just straight up. Half of these are Matrix clients. 2 of them are Firefox forks. Yeah, basically not much software. That's like 20 programs, 20 apps out of God knows how much in, let's say, the F-Droid repository, let alone all of Android. Yeah, Unified Push, to put in perspective, basically, you'd have to install Unified Push and have it run, right? So you have to manually install it and then have it run in the background, all for maybe 1 app. I'm talking about this because I did use it at one point for Element, which gives you the choice of installing it from Google Play or F-Droid using Unified Push. Yeah, I'm not going to have an additional push notification service for 1 app. Also, I don't know if this is a bug. I'm not going to classify this... I don't know if this is a Unified Push bug, but I've noticed that for some reason, under like certain Wi-Fi connections, it just straight up disconnects. And I don't think Google or Firebase Cloud Messaging does it. I mean, I've never had Google's push notifications fail on me, but Unified Push, yeah, I've had to restart it a couple times. I don't know why, but whatever. Maybe it's a Wi-Fi thing. Who knows? But notice how in the case of this and of F-Droid, it's like the software exists, but it's not necessarily polished enough, or let alone pre-installed, for people to really use it and take advantage of it, you know? You have to go out of your way to install it, and you have to go out of your way to either fix it in the case of, or restart it in the case of Unified Push, which, why should someone have to restart push notifications? Like, no thank you. That you shouldn't have to do that, okay? Or in the case of F-Droid, oh well, the app you have actually has half the features, because it depends on one proprietary library. You have to go ahead and enable this repository. Like, bro, be so for real. So it's kind of the state of open source Android. It's one of those things where technically it's possible, right? But it just isn't as smooth as just regular Android, and that's a shame. Like, the software exists, it just needs to be polished. Ugh, I think Graphene OS really is the highlight in all this, because Graphene ultimately doesn't care. Graphene just does exactly what I need it to. It lets me run my Google spyware in a sandbox. So it's even then it's better than just running it normally, where it is a dictator of your phone. But all in all, I really hope that someday I could just daily drive my phone without a single bit of Google installed on it. But as of now, it isn't looking very likely, unfortunately. Maybe someday.